What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Reseller Greatness Podcast. Today, we got my main man, Keen, on. And Keen has been around for a good while, long while. He has a great business, started out selling clothing. Now he sells a little bit different stuff, but in any effect, he's killing it. And that is the name of the game. So if you're just tuning in, Keen sells sports card. If you're not a sports card seller, that's okay. You can still learn a ton from somebody who sells in a different niche. And I think sometimes those outside of the box ideas that you hear somebody else implementing from a different section of reselling can truly be taken into our neck of the woods and they can be used as beneficial. And I know inside of the group, we have all the calls. I listen into all the calls. I have learned so much from the sports card call, from Jack with Jared with the auto parts, and it gets you thinking outside of this little confined box that our niche is. And then you could take an element of that, put it into what you're doing, and then you can ultimately find success there. So, Keen, you sell sports cards. You didn't start out selling sports cards. You started out selling clothing. You got a professional setup. You're putting me to shame. I have nothing on the back wall. I have a Galaxy S2 microphone just to show everybody low cost, no cost. We could build a great thing from nothing. And I know you've done the same. So give us a little bit of introduction, who you are, what you do, what you got going on. I've known you for a good while. It is a pleasure and an honor to have you on the podcast, my man.
Thank you, Tech. I appreciate that intro. May I have the floor just for 30 seconds?
You could have the floor for the next hour and 15, my man.
All right, so here we go. So I wanted to say this off the rip, and Tech, you I know you hate this. You hate the flowers, so you can leave the room
I'll
if
just
you don't
go.
want to hear this. There you go. So this man Tech changed my life. I started with this group, and it was like I was not doing numbers, but I'll just say that he gave me the tools and everything that I needed to be successful and be where I'm at right now. And the thing that I'm shocked, I'm one of the first people in this group. It's been like, if I'm not lottery pick, I might be first. I'm definitely first round.
Oh, you
I might have
first
been
round. You
first round.
first
Yeah,
round.
I'm definitely
Thomas
top 30.
Yaros is pick number one. He was the
Okay.
first one. You got to be top 10.
Okay, so I'm a lottery pick. It was
Yeah.
2019, and I mean, from the first day I joined his group, and this is just for anybody out there that's thinking about joining the group on the fence. This man gave me the tools to change my life. I appreciate him for it. And he's as and what I've seen in the past 5 years, he's as invested when there's 2,100 people in the group as when there's 21 people in the group. And I'm shocked because I can't come into all the calls. I pop in and I hear him talking, and I'm like, a new person pops up, and I'm like, man, he knows this person's story. He knows that person's story. He knows what this person is struggling with, what they're bottlenecking with. And I'm like, you just can't get that type of help, that type of guidance anywhere. And the knowledge he's had from doing this for years. And look, I don't like to endorse people. I definitely don't do it for free. And I definitely don't do it when I'm paying this man $30 a month to still be in his group. But
I
this man
appreciate
deserves all
you.
of it, man. So I just
I
wanted to get that out
appreciate
of the
you.
way.
And you come a long way in the last 5 or 6 years. We went, do you remember when the world was shutting down, the conversations that we were having on the Zoom back then? We were trying to figure out if we should buckle up or if we should just go all the way to the wall and start buying. And I think those conversations were like some of the best conversations back then in 2020, 2019, when, the videos on the computer, there were people falling out and we had no idea what was going on. They were like fumigating the streets and like we didn't know what was going to happen. And I think, we had a lot of emergency Zoom calls. And for me, as a lot of people know, I decided just to go to the wall and just do as much as humanly possible because we started seeing everything close down. And when everything was closing down, that kind of was telling me and talking with everybody in the group at that time that like the only place that we'll be able to shop is on the computer. So like for me, I went all the way to the wall and like there was a tremendous amount of benefit. And one of the kind of the reoccurring things that we were talking about, like, they have that saying that like when there's blood in the streets, like that's the time to go really, really hard. And for me, I'm thankful that I did because that really tremendously helped the business. So back then, 2019, 2020, just started reselling. How'd you get into reselling? What did you do before reselling? Because you're a very smart guy. And for Keen these days, you only ask me questions that are going to result in an extra $100,000. That's the only questions you come on. You'll log in and you say, "Hey, I've been thinking about this for a couple of weeks." You take the answer. No joke, no exaggeration. he'll go off and make an extra $100,000 due to that question. So I guess how did you get started with this, and kind of like how did you get to the point where now you're able to come on and ask $100,000 questions? Because not a lot of people come on and ask $100,000 questions. And I know when you raise your hand, I stop what I'm doing, I pay attention because I know this is a keen question that can result in $100,000.
I appreciate that. So I started, I guess from the very beginning, I got into my background was content creation. So I was doing video production for companies and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So that's why I do have a YouTube channel, cheap plug, Someone Talk to Keen.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so adept to the video editing, all that stuff. Why you see me with this kind of like setup right here is because it's my background. I left that job in 2018 because I did not feel fulfilled in what I was doing. I thought that there was just more out there, more to be challenged with. And, fast forward, spoiler alert, reselling has been the challenge. It has been kind of that has lit a fire under me. It took a long while to get to that point where I would ask $100,000 questions. Well, let's just go back actually. Like I got into reselling because of a Gary Vaynerchuk.
Okay.
And I learned a lot about social media from him. I learned a lot about, he had that thing called that segment called trash talk or whatever, where he go to garage
Hmm.
sales and then flip
Hmm.
stuff, dollar, $20. I was like, that seems easy. I could do that. You know what I mean? And then through a web of like diving into things, I find people like Rally Roots, and then I find you, and then I realize that you're starting this group. And for those first 6 months or 12 months where I'm trying on my own to flounder and trying to find out like how do you list, how do you title, how do you write descriptions, like do you do free shipping? And
Yeah.
then I join your group, and then like, I mean, it's the craziest thing because I see all these posts. First off, I see all these posts that you have on your Instagram, and it's like, damn, this guy finding vintage tees. He's finding all that. Does he like make this stuff? Is he hijacking trucks? Like, what's going on? And then, and the first Zoom call hops on. I'm like, no offense, but you're a good looking guy. I'm like, hey, where's Tech and Sports? Who's this? Who's
That's
this guy?
right.
He doesn't have like any rap tees on or whatever, but he's all about business. And then like in the first day, I got my $100,000 worth when everyone wanted to see how do you list an item in under a minute, or I think under 30 seconds or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And you said that that's just the way that I thought everybody did it. And I was like, no,
Yeah.
me, I was on my phone like, buy a brand new shirt, new tags, da, 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 like talking on the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
dictaphone, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to figure it out. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh, that's how you list I'm 30 seconds. You sell similar off your own store. It's like, boom, that's an easy $100,000 right there. So once I was able to get all those things out of the way, and even something as simple as like, I remember when I first got in the group. I mean, rest in peace, Kobe passed away, right?
Yeah.
Like back then, I asked you, like, if you have a bunch of Kobe stuff, like, what do you do with it? And then you were just like, you know what, my business principles, it's not in my karma to try to like jack up those prices, like do that. And you know what I mean? Like how a lot of people were doing at that time. Like
Yeah.
jerseys were going like $500, shoes were going like $1,000 when he passed away. His sports cards went crazy.
Crazy.
But then you were just like, you know what? I just don't want to make a dollar that way. And learning those things, okay, that's the way you do business. Okay, that's what you do. That's how you handle. When I got that foundation laid, I'm able to build on top of that. Now, all of a sudden, it took a while. 4 years later, I feel like I put in 4 years in university, right, to get to this point. Now
For
I can
sure.
ask those questions. We're like, man, just graduated. Now let's figure out how we're gonna make get the next 100,000.
That's
So,
it. The next 100,000, the next million, the next couple million. That's the name of the game. So, all right. So you started out selling clothes just like a lot of folks.
yep.
You found some pretty good success in clothes, but then you made a pivot. You made a pivot into the sports cards. Kind of what was the background with the sports cards and kind of why the pivot? And I guess bring people up to speed on what exactly you have going on this day and age.
So the pivot to sports cards mainly was because um it just spoke to me more. I mean, granted, everybody a lot of people in the group do clothing based off of your success and
Yeah.
and trying to emulate that. And of course, that's what I did for a long time too. Going to thrift shops, going to garage sales, going to flea markets and all that. It did well, but at that same time, something clicked where I was like, you know what, this sell through that tech preaches about for clothing, that's 100% doable for sports cards. And then I remember in your previous group, you had a call with someone. I forget. I think his name's Frank.
Frank.
He's like a car dealer. So
Yeah.
his whole thing was like auctioning off 400 cards a day and having them
Yeah.
listed on eBay, and there's auctions closing every single day. And I never thought of it that way because I came into sports cards at a time when it was 2019, when it was an investable asset. You buy it and you hold it for 1 year and it's worth more. You hold it for 5 years, it's worth way more. And it
Yeah.
did that. And the worst thing that could have happened to me is I buy these cards for $500 and they go up to 1,500 in 3 weeks. I buy it for 1,500 and it goes up to 30,000 in 2 years. And I'm thinking like, oh, what is it? What is it? The tulip thing, right? Like they say, like there was like a bust or like a hyperinflated market on tulips
Yeah.
back in like the 1700s, whatever. I'm like, oh, that's what it is. You just buy it and you hold it forever. But after it's something clicked with me when I was like, you know what? These are just like you said, these are widgets. And if you can find them quick, they are to be turned and burned over and over again. And I've essentially took what Frank did with his eBay business, and I run most of my stuff on Whatnot. So, and that's even more like more fascinating because eBay it's a 7 day auction. On Whatnot, it's a
Sure.
30-second auction, or for me,
Sure.
it's like 10 seconds. So I'm able to just turn and burn the stuff, and I can't find it fast enough. So that's kind of like where I'm at right now. That's the problem. That's the 100,000 problem that I'm having, finding enough inventory to fill up the operation that we're scaling up.
So at the highest level, the people that I've talked to at the highest level, I talked to Sneaker Cycle, #1 shoe seller. Um, we all know Brad, tens of millions of dollars in his niche. Every single problem at the highest level is they can't find inventory fast enough to keep up with the amount of sales velocity that is available in the marketplace. And when you start thinking at that level, like I think something different happens because the scarcity mindset is out the window when you start thinking about like it's impossible to keep up with the amount of velocity that is available, the amount of demand that the customers, all I have to do is find the item and the customers are already there. And for you on Whatnot, you've already built up the customer base by doing shows consistently. You don't have an extremely large YouTube channel. So a lot of people lean on and go, Whatnot, you can only be successful if you have social media. I mean, speak to that because I have a couple Whatnot streams. Nobody even knows they're my stream. But by getting on there and being consistent, that is where I have been able to find good Whatnot success. So speak about that a little bit first. How do you build up a Whatnot following? Because you have a nice following, but you're not out here 100,000 people. That's not you. So how did you build up that following inside of your niche first and foremost? Because a lot of people do want to try Whatnot, they do want to try live selling, but they're a little bit apprehensive because they don't come from a large social media or any social media background.
That's the biggest like barrier to entry in people's mind.
Yeah, I
Um,
think
but
so
a
too.
but a big thing, like I have friends that are doing well on Whatnot and they don't have a YouTube channel and they're active on Instagram, but I think they're more active on Instagram because of how active they were on Whatnot. Like people find them and seek them out. The biggest thing, I mean, granted, social media following does help to get
Yeah,
people in, but I'll say it for me. At the time when I went in, I might have had 10,000 YouTube subscribers. When I had my first stream, I had 20 people in there. Like
sure.
not a crazy number, right? But the key, bigger than having a social media following, is consistency,
That's
showing
it.
up like all the time. And I'm streaming 3, 4 times a week. You got to show up. And if you get burned and you get killed on an item, like you got to look at that as customer acquisition. You know what I mean? Because that person, I always say it like, if I bought something, I had something and I'm gonna say this because I want to. This I have to say this all the time now because I had $125 card sell for $1 because
Oh,
I messed up and I ran it too short. And but here's the thing, like for me, that's an Instagram reel now. Like
sure. Yeah.
Keen got crushed on a card. You know what I mean? Now all of a sudden people are thinking like, wait, he sold the card for $1. I should be in that stream. So that's my opportunity. It's like, hey, I might have lost, I might have paid like $20 for that card or whatever fit because I bought it in
Yeah.
a bulk deal. But okay, so I lost $19. I didn't lose 125, I lost $19. And for that, I got a customer for life because they're gonna come back and see what the next dollar card is they can steal. And I got some content that I can post out because now I have a reel that I can put, a YouTube short, a TikTok video where it's like, I'll hop on the stream. Like we're running these cards at 5 seconds. Like, you know what I mean? This is $100
Mhm.
card. But I don't know. I just look at it that as every way is an opportunity. The thing that people get stuck on, and I always hear from people that run on Whatnot for the first time or live selling, it's like, man, you get crushed. You get crushed. Like, yeah, you get crushed, but you got to keep on going. If you can't keep on going, that means you're not finding inventory at a good enough price. You know what I mean? Because at a certain point, you're gonna run out of money, and you just have to make
Right.
sure you find a way where you don't get there.
Right. So, all right. So you're running your first stream. You got 20 people in there. It ain't quite going like we thought it was going to go.
Yep.
You still show up and hit the second stream. Maybe you do a little bit better. Maybe it's the same. I guess how do you kind of build that momentum? You talked about consistency. You go
Yep.
live a couple times a week. Are you going live at the same time slot? Are you mixing it up? Kind of how do you build that consistency? Is it just about, I just got to go live 3 times this week, or on whatnot, do you have to kind of put yourself into a time slot where the customers know that you will be back on that day? Kind of, and I'm not even sure of the answer. So like what direction have you chosen to kind of build up that following?
It's same time slot every day, 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That just works for my schedule, and people have come to be accustomed to that. They know that okay, at this time on Sunday, and for me, like there's some staple days. Sunday is the most staple day. I'm always live every Sunday, 7:30 p.m. because for me, I have shows here locally, and they run from Saturday and Sunday. So I'd like to be able to buy the inventory that weekend and sell through most of it that Sunday evening. And
Wow.
and then have the check come in on Tuesday because after a certain point on whatnot, after I think 1,000 sales, you get the
1,000.
money as
Yeah.
soon as you print the label.
Yeah.
Whereas when you first start out, you have to ship it, they have to receive it, and then you have 3 days after that. So I
Yeah.
want to turn the money over as fast as possible, and that whole formula only works is if you're smart with buying, and that comes with education because you know that whatever price it ends at on a whole collection, 5 boxes, 10 boxes, that you've bought smart and you've taken care of the people that sold to you because they're happy with the number and they don't have to deal with it. And whatever it sells for, you've added X% to that pile, I guess, that money pile.
So, all right. So you talk about, buying collections, buying in bulk sometimes. I know you buy singles, onesie, twosies. When
Mhm.
I was talking with Phoenix Resale on the podcast, he was talking about how he goes to conventions and that's like the best place for him to purchase items. And I was thinking like, how in the world could that be possible? Because like everyone there is a collector, everyone there knows the price, you know, like how can you make money? And he said also everyone there is looking to sell. And I said, of course they are. They're at a convention, even though they're collectors, even though they're hardcore, even though they know the price, they also are there to sell. So like for you, you go to the card shows, you go to the conventions, every single person who's there is a dealer. They know the price. How do you go in there and come to a common ground? How are you able to buy at conventions? Because on the surface level, like what he said, everyone there is also looking to sell. True. But like people also want pretty much top dollar or close to top dollar if they are setting up at a card show. And I know if you're going Saturday and Sunday and everything is sold Sunday night, that is insane. Because you can put your money out for a couple of days and 48 hours later it's gone. So is that kind of like one of the core pillars to your business is going to the card shows and having as much as possible sold on Sunday night? If so, what kind of strategies do you use when you're at the card show? And I'm not talking strategies when you're negotiating with a 10-year-old, because you have like a short that has like 5 million views where this 10-year-old cooked you on a negotiation. So I know negotiating with kids is tough, but
Yeah.
how do you negotiate with the dealers? Kind of what kind of tricks do you use? Is it, putting together a package? Is it paying X percent? Kind of what do you show? Like you have to be an expert negotiator to go into the card shows and really get stuff done to have enough to come home where you can run a whole show and be set for the week.
I think so. For me, the advantage that I have right now, of course, is this is where the YouTube channel comes into play. Is people just know that I'm the guy that's going to buy it. No, and you've
Nice.
talked about this a lot for yourself as well. When you go to the flea market, and this is where I kind of like build, like try to get that persona and work towards that persona from, which is like when you tell me when you're walking out of the flea market, you're like the hot girl at the bar.
That's
Everybody's
right.
catcalling you, like spend money over
That's
here,
right.
come with me. So I'm trying to build that reputation. And I do believe I'm known as the guy that will buy the whole table.
Nice.
And that's the hits, that's the bricks, that's like the stuff that's been stuck under your garage for that your wife wants you to get rid of. Like I won't buy the best stuff, I'll buy that stuff. So that appeals to a certain demographic, more specifically me and my OGs, like the guys that just want to get like the deal done. You know what I mean? Like for a one happy number, I'm happy if you write me a check for this number, give me cash for that number. But I mean, it's tough nowadays because like when you go to shows like YouTube is so pop and you see the sneaker YouTube videos,
Sure.
the sports card YouTube videos,
Yeah.
everybody's negotiating over the last $5. Hey, flip a coin, like hey,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
this. Like that's part of it, but like I don't know. I think the biggest thing to negotiate with is you mentioned this too, and I love to say this is if you want all like if you're coming to sell to me, and first things first, actually, sorry, rewind. it's easier when you're set up at a table and you have a sign that says buying than if you're trying to go to somebody else's table and you're trying to buy from them.
So you set up at the show?
I set up at the shows. I don't walk
Okay.
around. Yeah, I set up at the shows. I have a sign that says buying, and I let people know on Instagram, on YouTube, look, I'm buying this, I'm buying that, I'm buying everything. Come see me first, all that stuff. So I buy all that stuff there. And I just tell them, people, it's human nature. You want all as much money as you can get for
Sure.
what you're trying to sell. But like what you always say, if you want all of the money, you got to do all of the work. And all of the work on a card like this, a Jalen Waddle, that's easy. Like this is one listing, that's a sale, that's like easy $300 right there.
One
It's
photo.
all one photo, that's it.
Yeah.
It's all this stuff right here that nobody ever wants to deal with. And I mean, CJ Stroud, that's a given, but like, like all that stuff, like this is like, what are you gonna do? Like, you're gonna make a listing for that, and like, I mean, granted, if you want to do, you make a listing for a $2 card, and and then make a couple dollars off. If you want to do it, that's what it takes to get all the money, though. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But for me, like we've talked about, I've built that audience and that show on Whatnot where I could turn through that inventory like super fast. You know what I mean? That
All right.
lower end inventory.
Great that you brought props. All right. So you had the Waddle card. That one
Yeah.
was graded. So for the people that don't know, can you hold that up? There's a couple of services. One
Yep.
is BGS, one is PSA.
Yep.
Um, it's just a matter of preference
Yep.
most times. So that one is graded. It says a 10 on the condition and a
Yep.
9 on the autograph, I believe.
Actually, it's the other way around
Okay,
for SGC. So they're weird. 10 is the auto and the 9 is the grade.
gotcha. So the grade, they go over the surface, the corners. What else?
Surface, corners, edges, and surface, corner, and centering. The centering of the
That's
card.
right.
Yep.
Surface, corner, edges, and centering. So if you
Yep.
have a card, if it's pristine, perfect, that
Yep.
can get a 10. If
Yep.
you have a card that's a little bit off center, maybe it grades a 9.
Yep.
So the higher the grade, the more money the card is going to go for. And that is referred to as a slab. That card has been slabbed. It is in
Correct.
a case. They have the one that you use, they have BGS, they have PSA. Those are different services. Now,
PSA is the main one. That's you're gonna notice the red label right there.
very good.
You
And
see,
that
you
one is
see.
Gem Mint 10. So
Correct.
that one
Yes.
has perfect grade across the board.
Correct.
All
Correct.
right. So that one has been, and then hold up the raw card. So now you
The
have what's called a raw card. This is just a card that has not been graded, that's been pulled out of a pack, put into a top loader, and then put into a rigid case.
Mhm.
If you wanted to, you can send out that CJ Stroud
Mhm.
to PSA, and then they will grade it. It will come back a 10, 9.5, 9, 8, all the way down to a 1 if it's not good condition. So it does cost money to send it out to PSA, to BGS, and it does take a little bit of time. There is a little bit of a lag time. You can pay more for expedited, but when COVID hit and the sports card boom happened, sometimes people were waiting several months, maybe 6 months for their cards to come back. So there is a little bit involved in that. So for the CJ Stroud, for example,
Mhm.
he's hot.
Yep.
But if he comes out next year and, knock on wood, breaks his leg, or knock on wood, throws 15 interceptions in his first 15 passes and forgets how to throw the football, that market has crashed on Stroud. And you could have all the BGS 10s you want. You can have all the PSA 10s you want. And now the tide has turned and it's over. So this is a funny story, and I figured we would get into this. So the blowout card forum, are you familiar with that one?
Yes.
So I went back in the day, and I'll send Keen this. I went back in the day and pulled up my blowout card forum posts.
Mhm.
And I used to have a post on blowout card forum, which we'll get into in a minute. But I got introduced to blowout card forum because my son, he grew up playing baseball. And I remember I saw a Yahoo News article for the Steven Strasburg Bowman Superfactor, the one that
Mhm.
went for like 100,000, maybe even more. And there was a bunch of hoopla over. And Steven Strasburg, before that time, had never even thrown a pitch. But they thought he was going to be the next best thing. Came into the league, had a productive season, won a World Series, but then was injury plagued. And if you spend a bunch of money on Steven Strasburg, it might not have worked out great for you. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. So I went over to the blowout card, and my son was in the card. So I was getting him some autographs, things like that. It was fun. We did it together. We had fun. And then something clicked. Something clicked that there was a bunch of people in one website that always wanted to buy new cards,
Mm.
that always needed to buy money to buy new cards, always needed money to buy new products, sealed product, new boxes when they came out. Um, Someone posted something for the PC, their personal collection. They just had to have it, but they were a couple dollars short. I made that post in 2010, and I have well over 1,000 sales on the blowout card site because I went on there and I was doing online arbitrage 15 years ago. So people do online arbitrage now. I was doing online arbitrage 15 years ago. I went on there, and when I was selling electronics, I was offering, like Keen, I had my card table set up and I had my sign, and I was buying all Blackberries, Android, Samsung, iPhone, iPads, MacBooks, any Apple product, anything Nintendo, anything Sony, cameras, Nikon, it didn't matter. And when people needed that extra $50 and they had that Blackberry sitting in the top drawer, they went right to my post. They sent me a DM. I sent them a good price. I was able to buy it, and then I was able to sell it. I did thousands and thousands of deals on the Blowout Card Forum website. And I was pretty heavy on that website. And then what I did is I said, okay, this works great on the Blowout Card website. Where else are there collectors that want money really quickly? And then I started going to the Nintendo Age forum. When every time a new video game comes out, people want to sell their old one. So I was getting a bunch of video games from the Nintendo Age forum. So 15 years ago, I know online arbitrage is hot. Your boy been in the game for 15 years strong online arbitrage, and I have thousands of transactions, 100% positive on the site. And dude, back then, the Blowout Card Forum, I didn't go back when COVID hit and all the prices went to the moon, but I can remember back then. This is 2010. It's a long time ago. I remember 10, 12, 15, 16, the posts that people would make about, I have all these cards and like my wife thinks I'm crazy. I have all this and my wife thinks I'm crazy. I don't know how many of those guys turned into millionaires during COVID, during the card boom, because they were buying stuff for pennies on the dollar back then, holding them. And the point of the story is, if you see a leak in the dam and you could be the plug of the leak in the dam, if people need money and they're collectors and there's a little bit of a gambling aspect for cards, for sports card collecting, I'm happy to shoot you $100 for a $250 iPhone. And that's where the tech part of the tech and sports name comes from, because I was out here doing all these electronics. A lot of them were coming from the Blowout Card forum. A lot of them were coming from the Nintendo forum, and a lot of them were coming from Craigslist. But yeah, just the speak a little bit to, I guess, the speculation portion of sports cards. And I don't know if you do that, because some people do speculation, some people do only Hall of Famers. I guess, what is your approach to it, and kind of what kind of stuff are you looking for when you're looking at a buy?
Well, to talk a little bit about what you said about Strasburg, I mean, same thing. Exact. When you mentioned CJ Stroud, he could turn up being. We're in the actually. It's what month is it right now? We're in April right now. We are in the CJ Stroud hype era of the offseason of the NFL.
Yes, sir.
Everyone's buying CJ Stroud, and what tends to happen at the end of every offseason, because everyone loves to speculate, everyone loves to be right or try to be right. Once CJ Stroud card gets too expensive, everyone moves down to the next tier. Okay, what's Anthony Richardson card doing? Then everyone starts hyping up. Well, Kenny Pickett's a second. He could come up and start starting again. So I don't really like to play that game. Like for me, because if you look at 2 years ago, you would look like a genius if you're buying Trey Lance, and then all of a sudden he gets cut. He gets traded to the Cowboys. People that lost a ton of money on Trey Lance, and even before that, if you were buying Andrew Luck cards, what happens if they decide, you know what, I've had enough, I'm done, and then he retires,
Right.
like a random day. I don't really get too much in speculation, and this is why I love to turn the inventory as fast as possible, because I believe that now what I've seen a lot. You make money on volume and not on appreciation, at least on this time. If there's stuff you want to hold, that's fine for the long term and make, 10%, 20% a year. Like I think Jordan rookie cards have doubled since the 2019 up until 2024, whereas Luca cards I think have went down 10x in that
Yeah.
same time frame. Um, but yeah, I don't really believe in the speculation right now, at least for me right now and where I'm at as far as building the business. My thing is going to be buy it, turn it over as fast as possible. If I see something that's worth holding on to, then I will. But everything's like what I've come to learn in the past 5 years. And this is completely different from when I was in 2020. It's like, oh, I'll never see this again. How am I going to get this again? There's cards that I thought were super rare back then. I bought in the past year, I bought and sold them, twice, three times. You know what I mean? So if I want something back, I can go back and get it in 10 years.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So right now, nothing is precious. Everything is everything's sellable.
So like for the speculation portion, if I was doing sports cars, I would want zero part in the speculation. Because like Zion, when he came out, everyone
Mm-hmm.
thought he was going to be the next coming. There might be more Zion 10s than Zion 9s out there. And like we have seen what happened since then. Or you get into things kind of like the Wander Franco one where like,
Right.
you know, he was doing good. A lot of people were collecting him, and then something off field happens, and then
Mm-hmm.
totally everything goes down to zero. So you do have to be very, very careful with the speculation portion of it. And like what you're doing, you're getting them, you're turning and burning, you're letting someone else do the speculation. You're just going to catch a little bit in the middle. So when we had Jack on, he does the Amazon FBA, he does video games. Kind of your two businesses kind of go hand in hand a little bit because it's just Jack pays up, still
Mm-hmm.
makes plenty of money. So like when you have your card table out, you have your sign in the front, do you advertise that, hey, I pay X percent of eBay, or do people know what percent you pay, or is every deal starting from scratch immediately? When someone walks up to the table, you start from zero, and maybe if you're used to paying 50%, if you can get it for 30, like do you look at it like Jack does, where like you're willing to pay X percent for a card?
I on certain cards I am willing to pay X percent. Like for example, if it's like super liquid, and liquid meaning I can turn it into cash as fast as possible if I needed to. If it's super liquid, super iconic, Jordan rookies, Kobe rookies, that type of stuff, I know that I can pay like a Jordan Fleer rookie PSA 8. I think I just had one sells for around 6,500. I told my friend I could pay 5,500 on it. He wanted to sell it, and I just know that if I could wait a little bit, a week or two, I can make that $1,000. But for stuff that's like just doesn't pop up too often. Like I prefer negotiate on bulk deals. For me, when I
Sure.
negotiate, I like people when they bring the cards to my table. I want to know at least what do you want for it, because you know your cards better than I do. And there's different ways to do this business. I've talked to my friend Derek from Soul Supremacy. He just gives his numbers straight off the bat. Here's what I want to pay, yes or no. Makes things easy for him. For me, I want to see where they're at because I'm kind of visible in the sports card space. If I believe their collection is worth $1,000, they think it's worth $2,000, and I say I could pay $800 for it, $700 for it. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, Keen's offering me
Low baller.
40%. He's a low
Yeah.
baller, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
just want to hear where you're at. He says I'm at 2,000. I'm like, I respect that. I'll pass for now. On to the next deal. Try to shop it around. All that type of stuff.
So, all right. So paying X percent is one model, and you held up a couple graded ones and a lot of raw ones. Is your model or the deals that you like to get are, you know, pay pay up for the graded stuff and kind of all that other stuff is kind of like throw-ins? Is that where you make the profit on the other stuff?
That's kind of what I like to do. So having I've sold so much in the past year that I can kind of look at a lot of cards and go, okay, I think if I ran this all on a stream, it will be X amount. Like that's how much my revenue will be. And I know that I need to be at this number. And to further prove my point, I'll just say, I like to say, and people who deal
Yeah.
with me, they know I'll be like, okay, how many cards you got there? We got a whole bunch of stacks of cards here. How much cards you got there? How much you want for everything? Keno wanted $1,000. Okay, $1,000. Show me like the 3 or 5 most expensive cards, and
Yeah,
then they
yeah,
go,
yeah.
okay, there's this one goes for 200, this one goes for 300. Okay, so that gets me to 600. And if am I comfortable with paying 400 for the rest of that? Will I make my money? That's kind of like the fastest way I can go about it, because I used to be at that point, and probably a lot of people were if they try to set on this path where every card needs to be comp, because
Yeah.
you want to protect yourself and you want to know where your money's going to come, and all that stuff. But for me, I'm at a point now where I could comfortably say like, okay, that I could pay that much, and that's fair for you. And if you shop around, I think you'll find the same, and that's fair for me. I can make money with the work that goes into selling all that stuff.
I think I look at it the same way. Like when I go to a flea market and someone has 50 items, I kind of try to identify one, two, three, 5 items that'll pay for the whole lot. And
Yep.
I know I'm going to make my money on the 45 items. And that's why, like, for me, like for the hats, like the other day I bought 81 hats from a lady, I spent $202. One was a vintage Stussy hat that'll sell for 100, and one was a Detroit Lions diamond hat that's going to sell for 125. Those two hats will get me out of that deal, and 75 hats will be pure profit. Is that
Yep.
kind of the same way you're looking at it too?
For the most part, yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's the way to
But
go.
it also depends on what people bring, right? If it's 3 or 4 cards, then I can kind of we got to figure it out from there.
Yeah.
But if it's like I'm gonna do a deal today or tomorrow, it's like I think like 600 raw cards and 90 graded cards. And we negotiate a price, and I explain the same thing to him. We're like, I'll
Hmm.
make my money here, and then I'll take the rest of the bricks off your hands that you don't want to deal with. So
Right.
Yeah, that's
But
probably the best way.
the bricks is going to be the moneymaker on the deal.
Correct. Because and
Yeah,
that's also you also mentioned something on the Isaiah's call that was like super like relevant. You said you want to get money in on the path with the least resistance, right?
sure. Yeah.
And for me, the path with the least resistance is the path with the least competition, and no one wants to deal with this type of stuff. This is not
That's right.
sexy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These like case hits, PSA 10s, that's sexy. Everybody
Yeah.
wants that. Everybody's competing for that. They're competing for 5%, 10% on
Yep.
margins on those. And it's cool to have. It's a cool Instagram picture. But it's like I always say, like these what I say, these pay for the bills, but these pay for the vacation right here. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So
And
that's
my
how I
my
look at it.
entire business is built off that raw card.
Yeah.
I let everyone else fight over the grills. Y'all can have the grills. It's okay. Give me everything else, and I'll just deal with raw cards. It might be a little bit more bulk. It might be a little bit lower of an average sale price, but that's fine. You make up for all of that in volume. And if you're
Yep.
not afraid to do volume, no problem. You can make a great living. So you casually mentioned dropping 5,500 bucks on a Jordan rookie. The game that you play, sometimes you got to pay.
Yeah.
How do you mentally get to the point where it's okay to drop 5,500 bucks to make 1,000? Because in a reseller's mind, my mind, a lot of times too, I want to drop 1,000 and make that 55. So like, how do you get to that point where, I guess first of all, like, do you remember like the first time where you really dropped a lot of money and were like, I hope this one pays off? Because I can remember what that one is. And I tell the story is when I went to the flea market and this guy had a bunch of dead stock polo, all of it had tags, and it was about 15 to 18 years old at that point, polo bear stuff, and it was 2,500 bucks. And I had never spent that much money at that time, but I ponied it up. I spent the 2,500, probably put me down to zero. But that one deal changed the whole trajectory of my business by not making a gamble, but I guess kind of rolling the dice and paying up, where usually I'm used to paying two, three, $4 or $5. That was kind of like my first big deal where I had to pay up. And I probably made like $50,000 off that deal when it was all said and done. But I had to get over that mental block of I'm not paying $2, like I'm paying up. So I guess, can you remember like the first uncomfortableness of paying up? And we talked about this the other day in the group with Sheila. She has a deal on the table for 10,000. She's
Mm.
saved up, 25,000, and it's hard for her to spend this money because she has worked so hard to save it up. But then we got to talking to it, and one item is going to pay for the entire deal, and she's going to have a bunch of money left over. And like that's what the money is there for. Like you have saved that 25,000 so you could drop that 10 and then make another 25,000. And ultimately what I told her, and the same for everybody, but scare money don't make money. And if we scared to spend our money in this business, we ain't gonna make no money. So how did you get over being scared? Because even sometimes, my knees get a little weak too when that price comes out.
Real quick, that polo deal, was that the one where you visited and then you went to the warehouse and you bought a whole bunch
That was a
like
different one.
oh my God, another one.
Yeah, that
So
was
this
a
was the
different
first one
one.
starting out.
No, this one was
That
at
was
the
a
flea
crazy story
market
though. Yeah.
where those big tubs that are like 4 feet long? They
Yeah.
had like six of those tubs, and all of it was brand new. And he wanted, I think it was like $50 each. So it ended up being like 2,000, or he might have had seven tubs or whatever. It ended up being 2,500 bucks, $50 per tote. And dude, I was so scared.
Yeah.
I had to call my wife and tell her to bring money. Like I didn't even roll that deep at the time. And like
Yeah.
I was so scared. And I got that stuff home. And you know what I did as soon as I got it home? I listed it as fast as possible because
Yeah.
I needed that money back. I was on a listing
Yeah.
spree to get that money back. But I'm happy I did it, but it made me nauseous. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, so for me, I would not recommend most people to do that, like spend 5,500 to spend 6,500. But in my niche and what I do, the fact that I have a YouTube channel and that makes good content, and I have friends that I can call and just double check, like, hey, like, does this look legit? What do you think about this slab? Does it look legit? Like any red flags or anything? I've built those relationships where I can rely on those friends that have been in for 10 years, 20 years. So if I'm ever questionable about something, I'll reach out to them and they'll offer me their advice. But for me, I do have a social media channel, and that does make good content to have a Michael Jordan rookie card, a $6,000 Michael Jordan rookie card. Um, and I also, like mentioned before, I have to be that reputation. I have to have that reputation of
Yeah,
the guy that's ready to buy everything, and
yeah,
that's not just the bricks. You know what I mean? I have to know that, like, oh yeah, I'll take your bricks, but hey, go sell it, go sell that to my friend. He's going to be interested in that, you know. So I have to build that reputation, but also the things that I've heard you say on the group before, and this maybe applies to more of the people that are listening, clothing resellers. You got to be like, there's always going to be that life changing opportunity that's going to
yeah,
come, and you got to have the cash ready, and you got to be able to pull the trigger because and of course, do your due diligence, do your math. Like you said, if you know that you're going to get the lot paid for in like, in two items, like for me, like it's different. Like these are like, I don't have to wait for the buyer. Like I can run an auction and I know that a Michael Jordan rookie card is going to sell for 6,500. It just so happens that the person that sells it to me needs the money today and doesn't want to deal with the 1099K that's going to come to them, but I'm built up to handle those things.
sure.
So I don't know. You just gotta be willing to take the jump. The first big deal where it really went like, ooh, this one's kind of making me sweat a little bit. I think it's on the YouTube channel. I think I spent $13,000 on a deal with a local card shop. But at that point, I was running all the numbers. I knew what items would sell for. I had my post-its ready. I said, this is gonna sell for that. If I can mark my percentage down, it's just a math game. I know I'm gonna make my money, and that's what happened.
That's it, man. So, all right. So there's a lot going on in the card industry. Um, when this podcast does drop in the group, it's going to drop 3 or 4 weeks later on YouTube. But this is pertinent breaking news.
Mm-hmm.
eBay acquired Golden Auctions. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think they're trying to do? We know eBay has been pushing sports cards for a long time. They kind of have concentrated on cards, watches, shoes,
Mm-hmm.
and luxury. And I know when the current CEO, when he first took over, one of his main focus points was what they refer to as a high value buyer. And
Mm.
that's someone that either comes to the platform like 4 times a year or someone that spends X amount of dollars. In this case, it's like a couple $1,000. Like that is what they want to find. Those are the customers that they want to cater to. So the category sports cards, watches, shoes, handbags, that has high written customer all over it. So they have put a lot of emphasis into the sports card category. They have stepped up and offered a little bit more protections. The market is very fluid. They had the vault, which they sold to PSA. Um, why do you think they made the move? What is your opinion, or what's the pulse in the community of why they made the move?
I mean, I think for every reason that you just said, that eBay's trying to acquire those high value customers, and Ken Golden, I mean, he has his Netflix series which really made things pop off for him. He had Drake on, he was live with Drake ripping sports cards, like $10,000
That's
boxes of
right.
sports cards.
Yep.
So bringing him on board, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to bring him on board. And Golden is actually, before they joined eBay, that was the place where you went to sell your $100,000 cards,
That's right.
$200,000 cards, $1 million cards, Wembayama 101s. That's the place where you go. So for them to bring that face and that
Oh
business
yeah,
onto
it
eBay,
makes
that
total
makes sense.
sense.
But
Yeah.
I'm wondering what's the thought process with, because it seems to me it's funny. I look at it, it's like, oh, eBay and PSA basically just did what sports card deals do. They made a trade. They said, you take the vault, we'll get Ken Golden, like that type of stuff, you know? I want to get your thoughts on, why do you think PSA, why do you think eBay like put that effort into build the vault and then just send it over, ship it over to PSA?
All right. PSA has their version of a vault, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I believe they had it, or they're trying to do it, or they wanted to start one. Fine. Someone else already had a vault before eBay had a vault, and those people are no more. Those
It
people
was
have
PWCC.
PWCC.
Okay,
Those people had a vault, and then eBay kind of took over that business model, and eBay had the vault, and now eBay has pushed that onto the to PSA. So, um, I'm not quite sure. It's interesting. Maybe PSA, their vault was kind of getting touched by eBay's vault, so they said,
mm,
you know what, we want to keep the vault, so we're going to take over yours. But having golden auctions, like, dude, that makes so much sense when you said that if you have a $1 million card, no one went to eBay with that card. Everyone
right,
always went to Golden, or they
correct.
would go to Gray Flannels or something like that. But now that Golden is underneath the eBay umbrella, you can still go to Golden and eBay is going to get that money too. So like that does make perfect sense, because if you have something crazy, you go to Golden. You go to Golden auction.
Correct.
That
Yeah,
makes total sense.
you don't bring that to eBay. You want that protected. You want Golden to verify that, handle the shipping of it. But yeah, you don't want to send that in, bring that to the post office priority mail, and then drop it in the mailbox. You know.
shoot, you might have to fly an airplane to deliver some of those, and that's just the name of the game. So I
Exactly.
back in the day, one of my friends, and I used to roll with a different crew back in the day. One of my friends made a post on Facebook, and this was like right after MySpace times, and he said, "Hey, I have to pay my probation officer $500 this month, and I'm $500 short. I'm gonna sell my prized possession." And this was a Michael Jordan Upper Deck Diamond Dimension number to 100,
Mm.
and he had it for sale for 500. It was raw. And I looked at the comps and they were going for like $1,000 back then. So I said, all right, I'll buy it. I bought it. I sent it into to Beckett, and I ended up getting a 9.5, which at the time the population report was, I think, 4 or 5 of those, because the diamond dimension has like a bunch of different jagged edges on it, and it
Hmm.
was really hard to get a good grade on the corners. And I ended up selling that within like 2 or 3 days to some guy in North Dakota for $3,500. And I was over the moon because that was one of the biggest flips that I ever made at the time, 500 into 3,500. And I think peak COVID, I think I checked in a couple times. I was honestly like too scared to check in because I, I
Yeah.
I didn't even want to see how high. I think I remember, and I might be wrong on this. I think I remember seeing that card sell for like $35,000, like peak, peak, peak. And I just looked right before this and I saw one end at 7,000. So it doesn't make me feel that bad, but I just want to, I guess, challenge people that are listening, just kind of like be aware of sports cards. And this is what I do. When I'm at the flea market, like I'm not a sports card expert, but I do know a bit about them. I'm looking for certain time frames and then certain kind of inserts of certain kind of players. So
Correct.
like for baseball, the 90s, Tops, Donruss, Fleer, fire tinder. You could
Correct.
just light it on fire. But in the same time frame, some of that basketball stuff is ridiculous money, like
Correct.
PMGs, precious metals. So like when I flip through a binder, I just want to know, is this fire tinder or
Hmm.
does this have potential? So I guess like I don't know, just a couple quick tips for the layman, just not to give them the game, but to point them in the direction where like, to know enough where you're not going to miss out on like a $1 million card. Maybe something like, maybe I need to investigate this a little further.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing you'll see at all garage sales, all flea markets, all your relative's garage,
That's right.
it hits you up and goes like, "Hey, Tech, I got these sports cars. They're from the 90s, you know what I
That's
mean?"
right.
And it's the late 80s, early 90s baseball and maybe even basketball cards that are just like they call it the junk wax era for a reason because that's when the time you could go to the store and buy sports cards everywhere. They overproduce it. It's
Hmm.
so saturated. Um, it's just not it's worth pennies. And they popped up a couple times in the Facebook group of people
Yeah.
asking. So I mean, you could do a quick Google, yeah, eBay search. You'll see like, oh, that doesn't hasn't sold, and it's worth like 90 cents, or it's sold for $1, whatever. And you'll get a sense of what goes with an afternoon of looking through some stuff. You'll get a sense of what sells for $1 and what is worth something. I guess generally what you're gonna look for, you're probably not gonna find like the new stuff in flea market if in flea markets or garage sales. You're looking for like you're looking for the icons. You're looking for Jordan. You're looking for Kobe. You're looking for Ken Griffey in that era. And you're looking for the shiny stuff. And you're like Tech mentioned, his card was like super jagged edges.
Yeah.
A lot of that's called die cut. A lot of
Yep.
those die cut cards from the 90s that are shiny. And if they're serial numbered on the back, like number to
Serial
1000,
number.
that's
Yeah.
going to be worth something. And because it's jagged like that, like Tech said, it's hard to get it in a good condition because of the print quality back in the 90s. And also just like 30
Just
years in
yeah.
existence. Like, you're not going to have every corner perfect. So that's why that card that he mentioned went for $3,500 and why a card that you'll find a random basketball player in the 80s only sells for 50 cents. So
That's
look for
right.
the icons, look for the great eye appeal cards, look for the shiny stuff. Everything else that's 80s, 90s, I mean, like, don't throw it away, but you're probably going to end up throwing it away once you do a little
That's
bit of research.
That's right. So on the back of them or on the front of them, but on the back of them, they'll have a serial number, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 100, 1 out of 1,000. Obviously, the lower the number, 1 of 1, that's crazy
Hmm.
money. 1 of 5, 1 of 10. If you see a serial number, they're usually like in gold leaf or a gold stamp, the
Yeah,
serial number.
it's like
There you go.
right there.
Right on the back, right on the back in silver. That is out of not
199, I
199.
believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
145
199.
out of 199. So only 199 of those cards were supposedly produced, but only
Supposedly.
199 of those were produced. And the back door is a thing in the sports card industry, so you got to
Uh-huh.
be careful of that, but that's outside of our control. So
Hmm.
199 of those were produced. No more, no less. So that will create that demand in the market. If there was 99, maybe it'd be worth double the price. If there was 49, maybe triple the. If there was only
Hmm.
nine, then it's 10 times the price. So the more scarcity, the more demand there is going to be for the item more often than not. Sometimes they'll have an autograph on the front. Sometimes they'll have a sticker with the autograph on the
Yep.
front. So some of them are signed with a sticker. That one sticker or on card?
Sticker.
That one has a sticker on it. So what the player does is they sign a whole sheet full of stickers. They pop the
Yep.
stickers on the card, and now they make autograph cards, or they have the on card autographs. And do the on cards still command a premium versus the sticker, or people don't care no more?
They do. So, but it has to be licensed though. So this is
Yeah,
licensed,
that's a good
and
point.
because a lot of times
Good
what'll
point.
happen, I don't have a card on me, but like Jordan Poole will be signing at a local show here in the Bay Area. It costs $200 to get him to sign your card. So they'll just bring a random card, like he'll
Hmm.
sign it with the blue pen. It was not officially, that autograph was not officially licensed by Panini or Topps, whoever it was. Someone just went and paid for his autograph,
That's
and
right.
those tend to sell for whatever the price of his autograph he typically charges. That's what
So
I've come to see. So if it's licensed, and this, you see this like Hakeem Olajuwon, it has both. It has the
nice,
auto and it has a serial number to 10. This should be worth, like, I think it's like $150 or maybe more,
nice.
$200 or something like that. So I don't know, just a little bit of research should be able to find a little bit more.
So
Um,
so that one is numbered, and that one is also an on-card autograph right there. So
yes, on card
that's
auto.
if you open up a binder at a flea market and you see autographs and numbered,
Yep.
I mean, that's not a horrible indication. They also have the patches, the patch cards, and I saw the Waddle, I believe, was a patch
Oh yeah,
card.
the Waddle. Yep.
And then they have RPAs, which is what, rookie patch and autograph. So that would
Rookie
be a
patch. This was
rookie.
a RPA.
There you go. So that's an
Yep.
RPA, which is a patch from the rookie year and the autograph from the rookie year, right?
Yep, yep. And
All
then
right.
and then another thing that you'll find on there, you'll have to look on the back, but what's super popular with these year is this modern stuff is it'll say where the patch is from. So this says this enclosed authentic memorabilia is not from any specific game, but
There you
there's
go.
some that is there probably one here, but it'll say game worn. So that means the
That's right.
athlete actually had it on for a game, and that commands a lot of premium. That's something that you can go oh, this is game worn, you know what I mean, from this player. And also another thing too, little nerdy thing on the serial numbers, if the serial number
Oh,
matches the player's jersey number,
that's
that's
right.
another like selling point. Like, oh, that's a jersey match. Like that should be worth more. So that's
Like
that's
they
it's
call
nerdy
those eBay
stuff.
one of ones
eBay
when
101's jersey
when it's
match.
the
Yeah.
same number as the jersey number. So
I
all
I
right.
say
So
I
go
say
ahead.
something now on my streams. I say, even if it's not, I'll be like, look, you don't got to be Goodwill freaking Hunts to realize that's two off of the jersey match. Run
That's
it,
it.
Chad. Let's go.
That's it. This is
It's
the
anything
only
to sell the
one.
card.
This is the only one that's 149 out of 199. Get it while
Correct,
it's
correct.
here. All right. So we're looking for serial. We're looking for not serial numbers, but limited edition numbers. Some autographs that are licensed, because you're right. Anyone can sign anything on any card or take a binder to spring training. That's different. We're
Yep.
we're looking for autographs that are licensed with a COA, and the back of the card has a certificate of authenticity. We're looking for patches, and the
Hmm.
more um, decorative the patch, if it is a patch of a patch, like or if it is this the one color patch, not as good.
The
Two color
napkin
patch,
patch.
good. Three color
Yep.
patch, better. And then
That's
so that one's
two
got two
color right
colors
there.
on it.
Yep. Yep. If
And
it
then
was blank and you said one color, that would be a napkin. And that's kind of like that's what people call a napkin. And it doesn't
yeah,
hold the same value as like there's five colors on there, or there's a piece of the dolphin's face on there. That's another like
patch of a
super cool
patch or
card.
the
Yep.
NFL patch or a logo, man. Now we're talking. So
Exactly.
now we're talking $1 million cards. If you can have a one of one logo man of Steph Curry autographs license, now we're talking big money.
Yep.
All right. So those are a couple things for people to look out for: the numbers, the autographs, the patches. If they are in slabs from BGS, PSA, not everything sent out is worth money, but
Correct.
that shows that they at least spent $35 to get that thing graded. So maybe it's worth checking out. So every now and then you'll see that kind of stuff at the flea market. Versus Google 1992 tops. Stay away from that kind of stuff. Google 1992 Fleer. Stay away from that
Yep.
stuff. Is there rookie cards in there that is worth money? Sure. But overall, if you see a binder of that stuff, maybe keep it pushing unless you have an expertise. Versus if you see
Mhm.
a binder of the stuff that Keen is showing, maybe gain a little bit of an expertise, seek the knowledge enough to be not a dummy and pass up on a bunch of stuff at the flea market. Figure out the rest later. But all right, so I guess in your time in the hobby, how has it changed? Because when I was a kid, and I'm dating myself here, my dad, who didn't make a lot of money, he could go to the card shop every Friday when he picked us up from my mom, buy us a pack or two. It comes with a piece of bubble gum. We share a couple laughs. We find, a couple utility players in there. It's not worth anything, but it was a good time. Now I see the card prices and a case or a box of cards, one pack might be $1,000, $500. They come with three cards in it. So like, how has the hobby changed? And I guess how has Whatnot affected the hobby? Because I'll be honest, when Whatnot first started, I used to go to those streams and just watch the cards and the amount of money that people were dropping on the cards. And like, it ain't a game. Is it still a game where your dad can pick you up from your mom's house on a Friday night and take you to go get a pack of cards?
It wasn't 2 years ago during peak boom era, which was 2021. That was the time when everything went crazy. I'm sure like vintage tee, like I think that Aladdin
Yeah,
tee, like
tease.
like
Yeah,
yeah, went
yeah,
crazy, right? Like Tupac rap tees, that
yeah.
stuff went crazy. Bitcoin, all that stuff went crazy. So there was that in sports cards too, where pack boxes of cards, Zion Williamson, who's not worth a lot now, you'd go to Target and you'd
That's
actually
right.
have to camp out overnight. People would camp out in the winter.
Or follow the rep store to
Yeah,
store.
no, not only store to store, follow them from their house to the first store they go
Oh
to.
my
That's
God.
how savage people got here in the Bay
Yeah.
Area. So people would like camp out overnight just at a chance at maybe getting three blaster boxes that they would buy for 30 and sell online for $150. People were getting fights in the parking lot. I remember somebody pulled a gun in Wisconsin and that kind of like halted all Target
Yeah.
sales. Like, okay, now you have to only buy two, or I don't know what it was, but I call those the glory days because my cards were doing amazing at that time. But I want to go back there as fast as possible. But as far as what I see now when I set up at shows, I do deals with a lot of dad son combos because,
Cool.
this whole hobby thing is cyclical every 30 years. Like, so back then you got kids that are like of age now that have money to spend. They want to share something with their kids. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of that. And like I'm doing deals with kids like, like they want to buy a $5 card. They want to and wax prices have or sports card prices in boxes have gotten a lot cheaper. So it is still a dad
That's
and son
good.
hobby as it is right now. And it definitely wasn't that in 2021. And then as far as how Whatnot has changed the game, I think you alluded to it. What people are doing now, and why some of these cards, like this Hakeem Olajuwon card, the it came from like, or this Jalen Water card. This National Treasure. So that came from a box that I don't even know the price of National Treasure. It's like $10,000 or something
Crazy
like that.
money for
And
National Treasure.
and
Yeah.
and you get like 8 cards,
Yeah.
and not a lot of people can afford that. So what they do, they go on Whatnot, they go on Instagram, they go on YouTube Live, and they buy a spot into a break. I've never really gotten into it, but there's 32 spots for you get the Dolphins, you get the Niners, and you hope for the chance that your team gets pulled and you get a card like this. So you
Yeah.
spend maybe, I don't know, maybe it was like $600 to get this spot, and you get this card that today is worth like $300.
Or
So
you get
it
nothing.
or you get nothing and you get a pack of cards, a slap on the ass, and like, thank you, let's try again next time. Um, but I mean that's honestly what's the ethos and the meta of sports cards right now is just it's a casino. Like for a lot of
Yeah.
people, guys that got disposable income that love sports cards growing up, it's like, yeah, like I got some money now. I couldn't afford that box, that $200 box when I was younger, 10 years old. Let me buy that $15,000 box now and open it on Instagram Live for everybody to see. So there's a hobby, but there also is a gambling aspect to it. But that's just the way that the country is moving because you see draft picks, fan duels, it's
Yeah.
gambling is getting more and more mainstream, and sports cards is naturally going to be a part of that.
That's a great segue, and you put the ball right on the tee for me. So we saw Shohei Ohtani, his interpreter, get jammed up for gambling, or at least that's the story that we got. And I read an article. I think the guy was, I think he lost 40 million bucks in his gambling career, and they said that he spent $325,000 on eBay and on Whatnot. They ended up finding his name,
Mm-hmm.
Keen. Did you sell to Shohei Ohtani? Have you been able to figure it out?
It's all signs point to no. But then again,
Uh,
I'm not selling those $2,000 cards or breaks, doing breaks in that thing. But also, I saw that they were shipping it. They were shipping his stuff to like the Dodgers clubhouse.
the
So I feel like I would
clubhouse.
have remembered Vince Scully Boulevard Drive because I'm like that's an odd address. I would have looked that up. But shout out to Jake LaRavia. I did sell a sports card. Jake LaRavia. He's like he's a bench player on the Memphis Grizzlies. And
There you
fun
go.
fact, if you ever sell something to Jake LaRavia, his address is Jake LaRavia at the FedEx Forum, and that's it. And I'm like, they're just gonna find him, like they're just gonna drop it at the
Yeah.
doorstep of the FedEx Forum. But anyways, yeah, I did not find anything from J Min. Um, I wish I could have been a part of history like that. I'm
That would have been such a great YouTube video. You could have did like a CoffeeZilla expose, like in a dark room and be like, dude, a lot of times, like they have what's called TTM through the mail, and like you can get autographs like sending to players at the FedEx Forum. Like you can send them a card, they'll sign it, they'll send it back. That would be an unlicensed, no COA, but like a lot of people do participate in that hobby too, where they have whole websites of TTM. You could do it with actors, you could do it with business people, sports players, send it in the mail, and that's a cool thing I used to do with my son too. He would pick a bunch of people and we would either send a card or have a little picture or something, send it out. And then in a couple months, like randomly, this stuff starts coming back and people will sign for you. And he has a whole collection of stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty weird. And yeah, send it right over to FedEx. So all right, so now you're on the Whatnot machine. You're going live all the time, making money, listing stuff. Do you do any eBay anymore? Like for the Jordan rookie, you put that thing on Whatnot and let it roll for 30 seconds, or you put that on eBay?
that went on eBay for sure. I need the eyeballs that eBay has for a card like that. Yeah, I don't leave that one a chance. That's
Well,
I still list on eBay. But I don't know what I'm gonna do now because I use their vaults a lot. But now that they're transitioning that to PSA, I'm not sure how that's gonna work. I'm not sure if I'm gonna send stuff into Golden. I'm waiting to see how it all plays out. I think the beautiful thing about the business you helped me build is it's only one person. My wife, we talked about, is helping me now, but like I can adapt as things happen. So like maybe I start sending stuff into Golden pretty soon. But as of right now, I've been pretty exclusive to Whatnot, just because it's been the best selling platform, and a lot of the sellers will say the same for
I
sports
read
cards.
something that in one of the articles about the acquisition where they were saying that you could get something graded by PSA,
Mm-hmm.
maybe use their vault and have it
Mm-hmm.
for sale immediately as soon as it gets graded. Is that right?
Yeah, love that. Yep, that's exactly how that work.
Because
Smart.
for people that don't know how the vault work, how did the vault work?
So the vault, you would send your cards in to PSA's vault, and then they would process it, authenticate it, and after a week later, you could list it from the vault and sell it from there, and they'll give you a break in fees and everything like that. So it was a good place to move higher end cards at the time when I mean it's still going now, but it was a great place to move higher end cards.
Yeah, and for eBay too, when they had the eBay vault, if there was a Steph Curry in there and it was in the vault, Keen could buy it. Maybe
Yep,
Steph Curry hits 80 points the next game. He doesn't even have to take possession to it.
correct.
And then he could list it. And now he maybe makes 500 bucks just on that arbitrage of eBay holding it inside of the vault. And I guess that was one of the selling points. And I guess the other selling point was if you have tons of cards and your house goes on fire, at least eBay has your collection stored over there. So is
Right.
that kind of like what PSA is going to do too? Like the card is liquid there's no lag time in shipping.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to do. At that point, you start to get into like, are you buying the card or is this almost like an NFT now because you've
Yeah,
never
like a
actually had it
micro
in your possession?
transaction. Yeah,
And I like it. I mean, it's also like buying stocks. You don't actually own the like, you know what I mean? It's just buying, trading like that. So I like it if people want to get into that. We'll see how it plays out, but I do think there's something tangible and tactile that's part of collecting where like you have to people want to have it in their hands, look at it, admire it, put it in their collection physically, you know. So we'll see how it plays out, but who knows how the future works out as far as I mean, the hobby now from 30 years ago is so different. Like
sure.
because like I always mention this back in the 90s, the junk wax era, cards went down and then like sports card shows stopped happening around you. And that's how everyone kind of fell out of it. And now people are now getting into it. But now a big part of my business is social media and the content and advertising. Now you have YouTube, you have Facebook groups, you have Discord groups that everybody keep everybody interconnected. As far as like if shows stop happening around you, at least you're connected with all these people. They didn't have that. We didn't have that in the 90s. So I'm interested to see how all this technology, all this social media plays out and affects the hobby moving forward.
You mean to me like you don't? look up your cards in Beckett anymore? Like you don't look up like Rod Carew, like 1982 is worth 35 cents. That's not how it works anymore.
That's how it works for some people, but
Do
not
people
for
still bust out the Beckett's?
some people. Tell me that, it's the greatest generation, right? They come
Wow.
they say some of that stuff and like, oh, I'm Becca, it's that. But for the most part, when you see all these YouTube videos, you'll see guys on their phones, and that's how it
Sure.
works. Everyone's pulling up comps and checking like it's sold for 100. Can you do 80? That type of stuff. Yeah, now it's like it's dueling phones at the card shows.
Man. And so what they have eBay comps and what is the other website? 30 point?
130 point. Yeah. I saw
130
someone mention
point.
that in the group. And it's crazy. You could actually, for a lot of people that don't know, you can look up best offers on shirts and clothing
That's
to
right.
see what the price was actually sold for. So people use 130 point. When you see an offer item that says best offer accepted, line cross out, that number is not what it's sold for. It's usually not, but it's usually a lot lower because the best offer
Yeah.
accepted was accepted. You can go to 130point.com, type in that item and see what the best offer accepted price was.
So we got eBay, we got 130 point. You can go to Watch Count and get that information as well. Is
Okay.
ComC still up and running? Is that still a thing? People still using ComC?
I don't know about the website, but they're active on eBay. That's more just a place where I think everybody just sends in their cards to get them processed. That's not a place where people send in their like 50-cent cards, dollar cards by the
That's right.
thousands and have them somebody else take care of them.
Kind of
And
like
there's
Amazon FBA of cards, right?
correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they have other apps now like Alt. So what a lot of people do now, I mean, it exists in TCG world. You just scan the card with your phone, and then it'll pull up pricing history, and
Hmm.
it's like I said, technology is crazy.
All right. So just to wrap this up, there's a couple ways to make money with cards. You could do the Keen way. You could do the ComC way, which is commons, but most likely a very large store, which
Hmm.
some people find success with that. You got a guy right up the road who has millions of listings. List any card you bring them. They have huge warehouse, make a bunch of money. You
Hmm.
could do that. You could do you could do the speculation. You can buy raw cards, get them graded, make the
Hmm.
arbitrage there. You can focus on Hall of Famers and sit and wait. So there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. I guess why did you settle on this way to do it versus, maybe like up the road where they have millions of cards or speculation or buying raw, sending it in graded? I guess why just settle on this one?
I think like the main thing that we talked about was the way that I do things now. I make money on volume and
Yeah.
repetition, not appreciation. But also, I do have a lot of my business relies on content marketing, content advertising, social media, YouTube channels, and I need to be able to buy and sell stuff quickly just so I believe I have content to show like, oh, you know what I mean? We're moving, we're really hustling, really busting. It's just
Hmm.
better content for me in that regard. Rather than just buying and sitting on the same 50, 100 cards for 20 years, you know?
Right.
Um, I think, I don't know. I think that just works for me. And I think you talk about a lot too. It's like when you talk about the problem that a lot of people have in their business, be it clothing, be it sports cards, be it whatever, the biggest thing that I think alleviates everything is sell through, right?
Yeah.
Like turning stuff over as fast as possible. Just so even if you break even on something, you get your money back and get an at bat at your next item. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? So just sell through. Like, and again, for me, that was the switch that clicked for me when it made me realize, oh, okay, like, yeah, that's how to do it. Like I remember you've harped on it for a while, but talking to my wife one time, I was talking about like the struggles of my business. It's like, like, where's the money? She's like, well, how many cards do you have right now? Like in the safe? I'm like, well, I got that
That's
much. Like, well,
Yep.
that's where all your money is. I'm like,
That's right.
that makes sense. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and I think a lot of people they don't look at that. Like, how many items do you have in your store right now? Let's say you got 5,000 items in your store.
Hmm.
What is your average sale? What is your average cost of goods? Maybe it's $8. You got 40,000 bucks sitting there looking at you in the face, and it ain't making you no money. And it's sure enough and in your bank account. So, like everyone, press pause, see how many items you have in your store, what your average cost of goods, and that's how much dead money you have sitting inside of your eBay account that's not making you no money. It's not coming in, not coming out. You don't get that new at bat that like Keen is talking about. And that's something really important to think about. So, all right. So you've mentioned the content creation. I know you got the YouTube. I know you got the Instagram. You've been exploring the TikTok.
Yeah.
How has, I guess, social media venturing into that part for people that want to start doing it? And it took me a long time to start doing it.
Yeah.
For people that want to start doing it, has it been positive? Has it been negative? How has that impacted your business?
Oh, it's been nothing but positive. A lot of people ask in the group, like they talk about, I remember someone said like they wanted to create a website to bring more inventory in, because that's been the switch that
Right.
changed for me for social media. If you look back a couple years ago on my YouTube channel, it's just a guy on a weekend enjoying the card shows. And when I started to make this full time, the switch happened. Like, I'm buying this, I'm buying
Right.
that, I'm always selling. It became my advertising platform, my commercial, my reality TV show to let everybody know that I'm buying. I'm the guy to do business with. Um, and I always say that, like I said, we've all, a lot of us struggle with getting enough inventory to feed the machine. Content has been the way for me to get that going. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And like my friend told me before, it's like it doesn't cost to advertise, it pays to advertise. So
Yeah.
I'm putting in the work, like, you know, 8 hours to 12 hours editing per video, not getting much return as far as ad revenue goes, but knowing that that piece of content is going to expose me to new people and expose my business to new people, and bring people into the streams or bring people in to see me at shows. That's the big thing that I get a lot at the shows. People come up to me and they're like, oh man, I love your YouTube channel, I love your TikTok, I love your social media, like, man, let's do a deal, like that type of stuff. So it's
Yeah.
like been the best advertisement for my business. And I would implore everybody who wants to get that inventory, wants to get that type of exposure, to at least explore getting that type of content. Because, like, so YouTube and social media now, I feel like, is the TV commercial and the reality TV show of the 90s.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
free because that's where all the attention is going. Everything's going to
Yeah.
YouTube. And I don't know. I think it's just a great way to kind of build your business and build your reputation.
So it kind of hit me one day because I used to do the faceless podcast, this and that. I'm kind of shy. Like I know people just see me talk on here, but like I'm kind of like shy and kind of like an introvert in real life. But we think about social media and we think about like, only the beautiful people do it, or only, certain kind of people do it. And one day I was just scrolling mindlessly and there was a guy on there, looked just like me, doing his best, doing his thing. And I looked at all the comments. There wasn't a single negative comment. It
Mm,
was just a guy out there putting out content and the people were enjoying it, the people were interacting in it. And I think like we get in our head that like, we see, the Instagram models, or we see the guys in the gym, the huge guys in the gym, and like, sure, they are on social media, they are finding success, but like I think that's how it started out. But like now it's for everybody. And
right.
I've put out my channel, I've put out stuff on social media. I received two negative comments in 8 months, 6 months.
Mm,
And both of those two were saying stuff that I said, and I never even said those things. So like they were totally wrong on their
yeah.
negativity. But like, sure, there are portions of the internet where it's a cesspool. And I
Yep.
think that with the internet nowadays, like it's a free for all. Like anybody, it doesn't matter what you look like, where you come from, how you talk, it doesn't matter. Put out the content, be a good person, and you'll be able to find your community just like you've been able to do. And people will come up to you, they'll want to do deals, or you could build your own community. And when we were talking to Phoenix Resale, we were talking about like because he has a lot of subscribers, he has a lot of engagement, and I was asking him, what is more important to you, number of subscribers or number of views? And
Mm,
he says, all I want to do is build a community with a deep connection.
mm,
So he said, subscribers don't mean anything. He said, I would rather have 10,000 people that I had a deep connection with than 100,000 people that don't really know who I am or aren't engaged on that level. So,
love it.
like, it only takes 1,000 people, 500, 100 people to know you. And now you start getting that deal flow, and that can totally change your business. And that was one of the $100,000 questions that you've asked in the last year was about the social media and how to get that deal flow in coming to you. And then we had a little conversation. You worked some stuff out, on your own and had some conversations with yourself. And you started leaning in way harder on the social media side. And after that, the inventory has been inbound. You've been making deals and your business has exploded. And, since you came into the group 5, 6 years ago to where you are now, I just want to say, my man, you are one of the best success stories. I know you don't like to get into numbers, but you are one of the best success stories. You're doing the thing. You are doing the damn thing. You're making money. You're doing good. I'm very proud of you. I know we don't talk a whole lot, but I know if you ever need anything, I'm always here for you. So I appreciate you, Keen. I appreciate you jumping on. I'm very, very proud of your success in the last 5 or 6 years. You're killing it, man. So if you got any final words where the people can find you, I appreciate it. I enjoyed this podcast. It ain't about clothes. I know a little bit about cards, but I enjoy going off in a different direction. I hope the people in the comments and the people that listen to it too. So if you are one of those listening in the comments, am I allowed to go a little bit left outside of clothing? Can we talk to interesting people doing interesting things in the comments, please? If you got a nugget from Keen, post it in the comment, please. Keen, the floor is yours to wrap it up.
Um, I remember one of the first questions that I asked you in the group 2020. I said, man, you're making millions of dollars. Why do you even want to do this group? Why are you doing this? And we talked a little bit, but then you said something in one of your recent videos. You said when you were coming up, you needed help. Nobody helped. And
That's
now
it.
on the second half of your journey of your career, you're retired. Now all you want to do is help people. And that when you said that, I was like, man, from what I've seen from this man for the past 5 years, all he really wants to do is help people. All he wants is for the people to be the best. You know what I mean? To be the
Yep.
best that they can be. And I feel like he's shown me the way. He's helped me. And I just want to say, if you're on the fence of joining this group, dollar a day, best investment I've ever made. And man, I owe so much. I don't like to go on podcasts. I don't like to talk, unless it's my podcast, and I'm gonna have tech on my podcast in like two
That's
weeks.
right. We
I
be
don't like
there.
to go. I don't like to go on, go on other people's podcasts talk. But for this man, I'll show up on the moon if he asks me to. So I appreciate you.
I
Join the
appreciate
group.
that. I appreciate that. And you were around when there was like 14 people in the Zoom,
Yeah,
and it's the same as it is today.
yeah,
We
yeah.
we were
Exactly.
getting it in, we were making money, we were being the best, and
Yep.
that's what it's all about. And you encapsulate all of that. And like I said, I'm proud of you, man. So I
Thank you.
appreciate you jumping on with me. I'm happy to jump on your podcast. I think it's going to be fun. But just keep doing it, man. And you got a goal this year. You're on the way.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
on the
rooting
way.
for you, my
Yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
I got
So
you.
as always, thank you, Keen. Tell them where they can find you. You didn't even give
Oh
you
yeah.
plugged me, and I ain't even asked you to do that. I don't even want you to do that,
Yeah,
but you
yeah.
ain't even plug yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Find me on YouTube. Someone talk to Keen. And then I'm on social media, Instagram, Keen underscore Keane. Appreciate you
Wait,
guys.
someone already had Keen no underscore?
I know I got to go after that guy, man.
There's two
Yeah,
Keens?
there's two Keen. No, there's only one, but but yeah, I got to go after that guy. I got to talk to him.
All right, I appreciate it, my man. Thank you very much. And as
Thank you.
always, be great.